Hey Colts, it's Mrs. Aladdin. I hope that you are doing well. I know that today, Monday, started off a little bit rough. There was a lot of technical issues with Clever and Google this morning that made it really difficult, but I'm really proud of you for working with your moms and dads and whoever is at home with you to overcome those challenges and get back to the work of learning. Tomorrow will be a new day and hopefully a better day. So let's keep our fingers crossed for that. Today, we're going to do a little bit more reading from our story, The One and Only Bob. And this story was written by Katherine Applegate. And if you're just joining us, this book is the second book in a series written by Miss Applegate. The first book was called The One and Only Ivan, which just came out as a movie on Disney Plus, if you want to check that out. So yesterday we kind of got to know our main character, Bob, who appears to be a dog. And he was a lonely dog and found his way into the gorilla's cage, and he took a nap on the gorilla's tummy. And that's where we left it off. So this chapter is called The Amazing History of Man's Best Friend. Before long, me and Ivan were best buddies. We're an unlikely pair, sure. Ivan's calm and serene, a philosopher, an artist. I wish I could be more like that. No one's ever accused me of being level-headed. Hot-headed, sure. And I can't talk pretty like Ivan can. I'm a street dog, after all, and proud of it. Still, we clicked in a way I'd never had with humans. Man's best friend? No way. Gorilla's best friend? You bet. Seems to me the first time I ever heard that phrase, man's best friend, was while I was watching TV with Ivan. Back in the day, Ivan had this little television, and we watched a lot of stuff together. Old movies, westerns, cartoons, you name it. Poor guy was stuck in a cage. Didn't have a whole lot else to do except for throw meatballs at gaping humans. Anyways, me and Ivan, big fans of the tube. Cat food commercials, pro bowling, dancing with the stars. What's not to like? Once we watched this special on the Nature Channel. It was called The Amazing History of Man's Best Friend. Show was all about famous dogs. There were rescue dogs and therapy dogs and war dogs and fire dogs and movie dogs and this dogs and that dogs. And between you and me, most of them were just plain overachievers. Then they got to this dog named Hatch something or other. Hatchet Toe, maybe? Seems his owner died. For the record, I object to the word owner, but we'll set that aside for now. And Hatch something or other sat around for over 9 years in the same spot at the same train station day after day, waiting for him to return. The thing is, the narrator guy was blabbing on and on about this dog, really over-the-top stuff. How loyal, how loving, break out the Kleenex, blah, 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 wah, 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 man's best friend. They made a statue of this dog. I kid you not. A statue of the dog who sat around for 9 years waiting for a dead guy. Okay, next chapter is called In My Opinion. That dog was a ninny, a numbskull, a nincompoop. Next chapter is called I'm Yours. Let me tell you about being man's best friend. Being man's best friend can mean a lot of things. Companionship, belly rubs, tennis balls, but it can also mean dark, endless highways and an open truck window. It can mean the smell of the wet wind as the hand grabs the box you're in with your brothers and sisters and you go sailing into the unkind night and still, crazy as it sounds, you're thinking, but I'm yours. I'm yours. I'm yours. Sounds like Bob had a tough time when he was a puppy. This chapter is called No One. That's what being man's best friend can get you. A black highway, an empty box, and no one in the world but you. Early days. I don't remember much about my early puppy days. It was 3 years ago, but sometimes it feels like 300. Mostly I recall fighting with my sibs for the primo meal spots. Lots of squirming and squeaking, everything soft and milk-smelling and movable, like we were one great big complicated animal. I never met my dad, and my mom didn't say much about him except that he was trouble. Mom had a beautiful fawn coat, Chihuahua, some of this, some of that, nice messy bloodline. Mutts rule. Mom crooned to us, told us stories, laid down the law. I wonder if she knew she didn't have much time to prepare us for the world. We were born in a dark place, probably under some porch stairs, I suspect, since I remember the sound of the boots plodding up and down and the biting, ugly smell of human feet. They called my mom Rio, and they fed her most days, though sometimes she had to fend for herself. She never showed fear towards them or respect. Indifference, I guess you'd say. Unless they tried to handle one of us, she growled then, hoping to make it clear that we were hers and hers alone. I got myself picked up a couple times. The hands reached in, grabbed, they were rough and smelled of strange scents, bitter and meaty. Mom's growl made me fearless, and I wriggled and yipped. The hands shoved me back into the warm place where I could sleep and drink and dream in safety. Still, I understood in my simple puppy way that dogs belong to humans, and that was how it would always be. Boss. My mom wasn't much for names. She had lots of litters. I guess she'd run out of ideas. My brother first was Natch, the firstborn. Runt, my youngest bro, was the last. Dot had a little spot on her back, and Yip was always complaining. I was Rowdy, goes without saying, and that left my oldest sister. We called her Boss. Boss was small but mean, with a distinctive sharp-sounding bark. She could outmaneuver any of us to the best spot for dining. I admired her grit, even if she did get on my nerves. When we got a bit older, less blind, more cocky, I fought her off occasionally, but mostly Boss won. She was fearless, that pup. Alone. The truck happened without warning one night. They threw us in a box, left my mom behind. I can still hear her frantic howls. I landed in a muddy ditch. It was a cloudy night, nearly freezing. Even the moon had abandoned me. And the smells, everything so wild and unknown. Animals with big jaws and bigger appetites. Birds that swooped in to kill. Death and life all mixed together. I searched for my siblings until the truth became clear. I was utterly alone. Cars. The next morning, I began my slow journey, moving through the tall, wet grass, my limbs stiff from the cold. Now and then, I'd drink from a mud puddle or gnaw on some grass. By evening, I was wobbly with hunger and thirst. I followed the highway. Every time a four-wheeled creature roared by, I froze in fear. And yet, and this is what slays me, I knew the cars meant humans, and humans meant the possibility of living just as much as they meant the possibility of dying. The owl. Darkness had fallen when it came out of nowhere. The owl, a shadow and a shadow. They don't make a sound, not a sound. It was quite impressive when you think about it. Here's a picture of the owl. Luck. Just as her talons, those marvelous weapons, raked my fur, I caught my right foot in a small hole and stumbled. If she'd gotten hold of my body, I wouldn't be here, but all she managed to do was grab my tail. One only time in my life I've regretted my handsome hindquarters. I was airborne, hanging upside down, dizzy and dazed, and just crazy enough to think, hey, I'm actually flying, before the terror hit me full force. I caught a whiff of the other animals below. Later I found out they were pocket gophers, but back then I just knew I was smelling something completely foreign. The owl must have decided the gophers would make a more satisfying meal. She let loose her grip and I plummeted to the earth. More luck. Maybe it was my puppy fat, or my soft bones, or my incredible good fortune, but I didn't die. I didn't even break anything. I'd flown twice in my short life and lived to tell the tale. Will. I found a small hollow at the base of a fallen tree, poked my nose in and got a swat and hiss from a grouchy raccoon. Kept going, waddling, whimpering, lights ahead, new strange smells. Kept going, kept going. It's amazing how much the sheer will not to die can keep you moving. Exit 8. I finally came to a small road curving off the main Highway 8 turned out to be. A big billboard overhead had a picture of a terrifying animal on it. Of course, I didn't know what a billboard was, didn't know that the scary animal was a gorilla, let alone that he would become my dearest friend, but something told me to follow that off-ramp. And eventually I ended up at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan. History. I made it to the mall, slept in dirty hay by some garbage bins. The next night, I found that hole in Ivan's cage, stole his banana, slept on his belly, and the rest, they say, is history. For 2 years, I lived at that seedy old place that was the part mall, part circus, and all crummy. But that was nothing compared to Ivan. He spent 27 lousy years there, and our dear friend Stella, the old circus elephant, was stuck there for most of her life, too. When Stella passed away, it nearly broke Ivan's heart. I tried like crazy to get him through those dark days, but what really saved him, I think, was Ruby, our baby elephant friend. Before Stella died, Ivan promised her that he'd get Ruby out of that awful place, and to my amazement, he actually pulled it off. Ivan and Ruby and a bunch of our other pals ended up going to different places, zoos, and sanctuaries that knew how to take care of them. They're with others of their own kind, and they're loved and well cared for. It's been over a year now since we all moved, and they all seem so much happier. Me, I lucked out. My girl Julia, whose dad worked at the mall, finally decided her family needed a dog. Who was I to argue? 2 square meals, my own bed, all the belly rubs I could hope for. What dog in his right mind would say no to that? The best part is we don't live far from Ivan and Ruby. I go see them all the time. I'm glad they're nearby, and I'm thrilled they've settled in so well. Really, it's a solid solution, but it's not a perfect one. All right, we're going to stop there. Tomorrow, or maybe Wednesday, we'll keep reading and we'll find out why it's a solid solution, but not a perfect solution. I wonder, Colts, how many of you have dogs or other interesting pets at home? If you think about it, maybe send me a note and let me know what kind of animals you have at home. You could send me an email or you could write me a note and leave it at the school. I will see you soon. Take care, Colts. Have a good day. Bye.